shines on me.
And thank you for joining us on Issues and Answers. I'm Josephine Ehinihe. This morning we'll be looking at food shortages as predicted by NIMET, that is Nigeria Meteorological Agency. And we said they predicted that in 2021 we should expect drought. There should some areas there will be floods and a lot of natural challenges, and we're going to be looking at it because when such issues are brought that there will be food shortages, what are we going to do so that we'll not experience dryness at that particular time? I have somebody who will be talking to us, making suggestions on how to surmount the challenge in 2021. I have Mallam Ikhelowa. He is a retired permanent secretary and is the chairman Forum of Edo State Retired Heads of Service and permanent secretary, and also a farmer. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, viewers.
All right. How is your farm this morning?
Well, we are doing our best. At least that is what is sustaining us.
Wow.
It's the farm that is sustaining us up to today. The truth is that weather fluctuation has always been the bane of agriculture.
Okay.
But it is how we respond to it appropriately that will determine whether there will be food shortages or food surpluses. Well, that is not to undermine the fact that we're in a different scenario now. We have what we call climate change. So the pattern of the climate of weather has changed drastically. At times, rain used to come earlier than expected. At times, areas that used to be flooded are now dry, and vice versa. A lot of changes unexpectedly. But however, the prediction of NIMET is that there's going to be food shortages in the country as a result of climate change. That where drought is predicted in a lot of areas, and flooding is predicted in a lot of areas. Like I said, it's the response that matter. For instance, there are drought-tolerant varieties of cereals. That is maize, rice, guinea corn, millet, and what have you. There are varieties that can withstand, drought. This variety, the gestation period is very short. Instead of about 120 days for maturity, some of them can mature in 90 days. So we quickly take advantage of the period that there is rain. There are also varieties of crop that they really do not require too much water to be able to do well. And a little even dew that drops on this cake can make them to do well. Then you know that when you have a flooding, there are also some response that you can also make. For instance, plantain or bananas, they actually do not respond to flooding too badly. So there are also what we call vetiver grasses that we can also use to check this drought. Then besides, one of the things that we also have to do is that we also have to ensure that at times we have means of storage.
Okay, because if I allow you to continue, you are like as if you are delivering a paper. But I'm going to ask you some questions, and so that we can be cleared on the issues. Talking about the prediction, do we think as a nation we are prepared for it? Because you said while you were talking that climate change has been a problem to farmers, and this prediction now is coming. Do you think most of these farmers, especially those in the rural areas, are aware of the prediction of what is coming to Nigeria right now?
Yes, the truth is that there are various mechanisms through agricultural information is disseminated. The federal government sends out this prediction to the state government. The state government gives out this prediction to the ADPs, the agricultural development programs in the state. at times. So the ADP also get this directly from the federal government. Then the ADP, they are expected to have what we call extension agents in every cell, where these cells, they are roughly equivalent to what you now call wards in political terms. In political terminology, you call them wards. Like for example, those states has about 192 wards. So expectedly, you have to have at least one extension agent in that district. In some cases, up to 2, so that whatever information that comes is supposed to filter to the grassroots. And in the same vein, information observation
supposed to filter.
Yeah.
That means sometimes it can be.
No, when I say filter, is that the extension expert have the duty to analyze. They cannot just, they have that duty to analyze and to break the information down to what we call impact points, what is really relevant to the farmer. So don't forget that it's a gamut of information, so forth. It's not. They are not just. The weather data is not just talking about rainfall alone. They talk about sunshine hour. They talk about photo period. They talk about rainfall duration. They talk about rainfall intensity, and so forth and so on. These are not things that the ordinary farmer will just comprehend so easily. That's why I use the word filter. Okay. The duty of the extension expert to now break down this information to what we call impact points, which will be easily understandable and assimilated by the farmer with the view to using the same for his own, benefit. Okay. I think that is why I use that word. So I think to at least by the arrangement on ground, I think that is, I can say we are prepared for that. But in terms of infrastructure, I do not think that we are very prepared, because the infrastructure in the rural area to support agriculture is not really there. The storage facilities are not there, and because don't forget that agriculture is a pattern. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Whether there is climate change, whether there is drought, whether there is rainfall, whatever happens, there is a cycle. We call it surplus, shortage, surplus cycle.
It has been like
it has
that.
always been like that. You must have some years you have surpluses. There are some years you have cycle. So in classical agricultural economies, we refer to it as cobweb cycle. Okay. Cobweb, spider. It draws a rope like this up and down. That's why we call it cobweb cycle. So the years that there are surpluses, there ought to be a method of storing. In case when there are shortages, something can be done. So, but the federal government response to this is that you have what we call silos. You also see that look like big drums. If you are going to Auchi, for example, by Ikhelowa, we see those, they look like big drums. And those things, they have capacity to store millions of tons.
Are they functional?
And that is the problem. Many of them are dysfunctional.
Wow.
Many of them are dysfunctional. Otherwise, the ideal thing is that those silos can store grain for up to 50 years. They remain wholesome. So once there's shortages, from there we release food to the market.
Okay, what does it take to make it functional?
Well, it's not really too much. It's just that at times, I think I look at it, I have always said that it's a structural issue. Why do I say it's a structural issue? We see the federal government is taking too much on itself. For example, how do you expect a silo at Ikhelowa to be maintained by somebody in Abuja? That's why I say it's a structural issue. For example, if those silos were handed over to the state governments and even to the ADPs, and you provide them with the resources to manage them, it will be easier. When I was the program manager of ADP, and as well as the state coordinator for National Program for Food Security, as well as the coordinator for Root and Tuber Expansion Program, we had an issue that brought this particular dysfunctionality to focus. We did a dam at Warake. So the federal government brought the contractor from Abuja, but the contractor did not foresee so many issues that will arise. For example, when the dam was done, the downstream people were no longer getting enough water. That caused a lot of problem, a lot of that I had to, by being on ground, I had to go into the matter and so forth. A lot of things had to be done. So what we're saying, for example, if that dam was conceptualized and implemented by people on ground, for example, the state government, then the unintended issue that arose later would have been foreseen. And this is exactly what is happening with those silos. So I think otherwise, it's not that
it's being controlled by the federal government.
Yes,
not state.
Not state. So
can states have their own storage facilities?
States can have their own storage facilities, just that they are expensive. Like those silos now, they are very, very expensive. But what we have always advocated is that Nigeria is not too ripe for very sophisticated technology. We have what we call on-farm storage facilities. That is, each farmer can have a system of storing. We have storage bins. We also have some other, like for instance, if you have a drum and put your grains there and put a photosynth tablet inside, I mean, all the insect and all these things can be controlled. So what is important really is availability of storage technology, on-farm storage technology. That is, teach the farmer what they can do on their own to store the little they have. Maybe at times the farmer may not have more than a ton to store. But when you aggregate all these 1 ton, half a ton, all over the country, there will be food surpluses instead of such food item to be wasted because you are waiting for a gigantic, sophisticated storage facility. It does not work because, like some countries where we have experience, like India, like Italy, like Cuba, this on-farm storage is heavily emphasized.
It doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much. It's just, like I said, it's
knowledge.
just a question of knowledge, the technology, how to do it. In such country, you see, there's a lot of emphasis on the human capital, the human resource. Teach the man what to do, he will be able to do it. So this is one of the problems.
Okay, I'm so worried talking about we not being prepared because it's obvious that we are not being prepared.
Yeah.
Because where you don't have storage facilities, you are not ready, and the prediction is on. But my concern is about they say most of these droughts will take place in the northern area, for instance, Kebbi, Katsina, Gombe, and most of them, you and I know that they are the ones that bring most of the grains down to the south. And now there's prediction that things might be so bad for them over there. What can we do here in the south to ensure that when there is this drought in the north, we'll still have our normal food to eat?
That is exactly what I said. I said, well, like, they're talking about drought, yeah, maybe I'm talking about flooding and so on and so on. But like we said, for instance, there's no reason why we cannot expand our plantations. Because like I said before, plantain is quite tolerant to flooding, at least relatively. Then there are varieties of plantain now, like Abagba, that can give you almost 2 times the normal yield. And 2, plantain 2 is very, very amenable to storage. Maybe our local people, they know what to do when they harvest the plantain. They slice it they chip it to pieces, they dry it. Once they chip and dry to about 12% moisture content, they can store for as many years as you want. And that plantain, you can turn into anything. You can turn into fufu, you can turn into whatever you want, and it's nutritious. And of course too, there are also some patches of there are so many areas in the south too that are also very, very good for rice production. Do not forget, there are 2 varieties of rice. You have the swamp rice, you have the lowland or highland rice. But the swamp rice can be can be flooded. You don't have any problem. In fact, actually, they actually need a lot of water. That's why you call it swamp rice or lowland rice. So in this time now, emphasis should be placed on swamp or lowland rice, like what you have in the River Niger plain, flood plain, in Lushi, Agenegbode, Udaba, Anegbete. It's a large flood plain that can be devoted to rice production that can support the whole of Edo State. As this is in Edo State, there are other flood plains elsewhere in the south. In Niger Delta. In Niger Delta alone can supply the whole country rice. So these are the issues. So it's just a question of redirecting our focus and focusing on the areas where we have a higher cooperative advantage. And there are some areas we have, like for example now, when they say rice production, yes, the north has advantage on highland rice production. We have advantage on lowland or swamp rice, production, because both of them are rice. The taste is the same, but they do not require the same amount of rainfall. For one requires a lot of rain to do well. One requires minimal rain to do well. So you can see it, but they are rice.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about fertilizers for farmers.
Okay.
Do you think that farmers are having enough fertilizer to increase their produce?
Yeah, in fact, this is one of the greatest problems of agriculture, not only in Nigeria, the entire Africa. As a matter of fact, the International Fertilizer Summit, where some of us were privileged to participate in Egypt, it was recorded that Africa has the lowest amount of fertilizer application in the whole world, whereas the average farmer will require about 500 kg of fertilizer. The average Nigerian farmer does not use up to 50 kg. I mean, this is painful. This is disastrous. So because the things that we've done a lot of adaptive researches in farmers' farm that portray the fact that the difference in yield in with and without fertilizer is so amazing. It's so great. It's so great. For example, in cassava, if you don't use fertilizer at all, you may get about 8 metric tons. But in some areas, you can get 50 metric tons per hectare.
With fertilizer.
With fertilizer. You can get 50 metric tons. So, but people have always said, and I want that argument I want people to disabuse their mind from it. People always say, we don't need that fertilizer. Our lands are very fertile. Anything you put, if you put cover ground, will grow. When people argue like that, most of them say, it doesn't need fertilizer. No, our lands are very fertile. But what they don't know is that is the first year when you just clear of forest for the first year.
Like a virgin land. Like a
virgin land. And myself and you, we all know that land is no longer available. You cannot continue to clear land every year. It's not available. So if you want to have sustainable and sedentary agriculture, you must have fertilizer. The reason is that our soil here, there is something we call leaching. When the rain falls, as you have a horizontal erosion, you also have vertical erosion. That's the rain that falls, it washes the nutrient beyond the root of the plant.
Wow.
So you have to constantly replenish. That is why you find that in the south, for instance, the tree crop, they do better than the food crops, because the tree crop, their deep root system, we enable them to get to the fertilizer that have been leached downward. But whereas the food crop with peripheral roots, fibrous roots most of the time, if you don't continue to apply fertilizer year in, year out, the yield will begin to decrease until you virtually be getting nothing.
Okay.
So that is the situation. We must have to understand that
Fertilizer is very
fertilizer is very, very essential to crop production
Okay.
anywhere in the world, particularly in the south, where there is so much torrential rainfall.
Okay. I have this problem. A lot of persons believe that most of these fertilizer produce have their own side effects. That, for instance, talking about level mercury, maybe for instance, you get more when you use fertilizer. Don't that have its own side effects to our health?
Well, you see, the truth is that, science is always researching, doing this or that. Well, the only thing that I know is that, you see, when you use fertilizer, the plants at times become bigger. And when they become bigger, it also means that they have more problem of storage. They have more problem of storage. As to health issues, I don't know about that, because it is like this. The fertilizer provides the crop with essential nutrients. Don't forget, the plants, they are like you and me. They take their food from the soil. The nutrients in the soil, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, these are the major element, NPK. These are the major element for crop growth.
Okay, can you differentiate between the organic and inorganic fertilizer?
Yes, the inorganic fertilizer, they are the one that will supply these nutrients almost immediately. That's what we call it inorganic. It's like chemical. You are taking your chemical, it takes it, if a soil is not fertile now, you put your inorganic fertilizer, in a question of days, you begin to see the impact. For instance, when the plant turns yellowish, the leaves becomes yellow, that plant will not do well, because it is that greenness that we use to capture the sunlight for the purpose of photosynthesis, which is the basis of life anyway. But that lack of chlorophyll is as a result of nitrogen. So when you put NPK, before you know what is happening, the leaf will turn green. They'll be able to. So, but organic fertilizer, it will take a lot of time to repair the soil, because these are all, for example, compost, they will decay, they will do a lot of these things. So for immediate impact, very, very immediate impact, you need inorganic fertilizer. But for long-term sustainability of the soil, to improve on the soil structure, to improve on the soil profile, to improve on the microorganism in the soil, for the overall health and productivity of the soil, organic fertilizer is preferable.
Okay.
But another drawback of organic fertilizer is the bulk. So for you to apply, for example, organic fertilizer in a hectare, you may need about 5 or 6 to 10, truck of tipper. So you find so it's bulky. Whereas if you are going to use organic fertilizer, 4 to 5 bags would have done that, job. So basically, organic fertilizer, most of the time, people use it for home gardening.
Yes,
they
I was
use
coming
it for.
to that. And what do you use to enrich the soil in that home gardening?
Yeah, you see, just Nigerians are we are becoming lazy and drifting away from our past. You don't forget that in the primary school, they used to teach us how to make compost. They used to teach us how to make compost. How do you make that compost? You have a small compartment in your home. Maybe you dig a small place in your hole. All the food remains you have, about, you go and put a rice where the chop remain, you go and put them. Leaves, in fact, biodegradable materials. Biodegradable material. Use clothes and everything, you keep them there. Feces that children have passed away, you keep them there. Foul, dump, everything that you will put them there. After about 6 months, those things will decay. They will turn to what you call humus, become very dark. That is very, very rich. It's very, very rich. So, when I went to the US, I just saw some pelleted material in the supermarket. I was admiring them. I just put my hand like this. I just admired the perfume. So, the sales guy say, I say, very good, that's very good home fertilizer is made from human feces. I now grew my back. But I remember the thing was scented. It didn't look like feces at all. So it's a question of science. For instance, in that environment, they have what we call central sewage system. All the feces that is passed out is taken to an incinerator. So the incinerator remove the water and get it concentrated and very, very high, nutrient for plants. And it's perfume. So you wouldn't know. That's why all the plants require is nutrient. Whether it comes from human feces, or whether it comes from cow dung, or whether it comes from inorganic fertilizer, all they require is.
That means technology is very important.
That is what I've always been emphasizing. The emphasis is technology, knowledge.
All right. Talking about the prediction of food shortages, what is your advice for state government so that they don't have this experience, maybe a minimal one as against maximum food shortages?
Yeah, well, what I will advise is, like I said before, there are crops with early maturing, short gestation period. We say they are early maturing, high yielding, and disease resistant. We have these varieties. So emphasis should be placed on making these varieties of crops of early maturing, improved variety to farmers. We have cowpeas that will mature in less than 65 to 70 days. We have maize that will mature in less than 100 to 120 days. We have rice that will mature in 110 days. So this should be made available to farmers, maybe at subsidized rates. I know that I'm privileged to know that government is already doing something like that, but let it be more far-reaching so that it can reach some people. Let it be more far-reaching so that it can reach almost every person who wants to. So that is that. Then, like we also said before, we should also, state government should not be tired of making modern agricultural technologies to farmers, training them on what to do, because this training can make a difference between yield and no yield. I tell you, for instance, when we were in the ADP, we had a problem which you call the black sigatoka disease. The black sigatoka disease was almost wiping out the entire plantation, not only in Edo State but in the entire South. It was a viral disease, a virus disease, almost
like COVID-19,
like like HIV and what have you. Then we went into collaboration with IITA. I was the coordinator for the South. The difference was just making the varieties available. There were varieties that were resistant. With this one, I was discovered that nature has a way of compensating. There are some varieties, even local varieties, that were resistant. So what we had to do was to quickly multiply this variety. We use what you call rapid.
You went into research.
Yes, went into rapid multiplication. Then we made it available massively to farmers. With every sense of modesty, we want to say that today we don't have any black sigatoka disease in Edo State as a result of that effort of government, IITA, and so forth and so on. So what we are trying to say is that emphasis on research cannot be too much. Emphasis on research cannot be too much. You see, a lot of people still say agriculture as cut and nail. Say, oh, no, agriculture, not be saying put crop for ground, they go grow, do this and that. My dear, it's not so. There are a lot of.
All right. Okay, let's talk about farming tools. Apart from fertilizers, do you think our farmers, especially in the rural areas, have enough of that to go into their farming, or should it be subsidized for them so they can?
In fact, the unfortunate thing is that all this grammar we have spoken, all everything that we have said, have hardly changed anything. Basically, Nigeria agriculture is still cutlass and hoe, which will take us to nowhere.
And make the hunger to be more.
We take us to nowhere because cutlass and hoe agriculture at best is for peasantry agriculture. That is for myself and my family. We think that when there are opportunity for land, mechanical land preparation, you can prepare the land, tractorize it, plow it, harrow it. For instance, now, if they plow land and they give you 4 hectares, you can farm that 4 hectares conveniently. You only go there on an episodal period. When you are planting, you go there. You apply your pre-emergent herbicide. You go there. The next time you go there will be your harvesting time. So this cutlass and hoe agriculture is a past era. It's a past era. This is
but we still have it with us, especially in the rural.
No,
areas.
I'm not saying we have it. That is the order of the day. I'm saying that government has a responsibility to change it. If we must move forward in terms of food production, we have a responsibility to change it. It will take us to nowhere. That's the point I'm making. We have a responsibility to change it. There are, apart from big equipment, there are small equipment, 1 horsepower, 2 horsepower for soil tillage. The problem is opening the soil and tillage. The problem is clearing the land for the first time and tilling it. This is the problem. But for example, now we now have the application of herbicide to agriculture now is now very pervasive and general. So most farmers now they don't have that back breaking and filled with drudgery in terms of weeding. It's no longer there. They just go there, spray their farm. There's no farmer who does not know now that you have to use chemical to spray their farm. However, there have been a lot of hazards. So many farmers have died because they don't even have the knowledge of how to spray. So many farmers have died. For example, a simple method to spray and follow the direction of the wind. For example, if you hold your handkerchief like this, you watch it. If the wind is blowing to this side, you know the wind is going to this side. So if you are not spraying, you are coming from this side, the other side will be coming to your nose. That is one. Then the use of of mask to shield yourself from the herbicide. These are simple things. Then even the calibration, the misting of at times is become too concentrated beyond what it's supposed to do. There are so many things. And secondly, there are a lot of fake herbicide in the market. People are taking undue advantage of the farmers. They sell it to them, So the government has a responsibility to regulate the use of herbicide and also train farmer on the use of herbicide. I know a lot of farmers who have died. Some have gone blind because of a wrong application of herbicide and so forth and so on. So
that's so terrible. That's very terrible for people to die in this era of knowledge.
Yes.
And that means the state government, the federal government has a lot to do.
Yeah, very much.
We have a lot to do
Very much.
ensuring that
Very much.
our farmers are safe, our land is healthy, and there is food
Very much.
surplusity.
Very much.
Okay, let's before we round up this conversation, talking about food shortages according to NIMET prediction. What do you advise families to do? Because you always advocate for little farming, gardening, and so at this time, what do you expect? What is your advice to families?
Yeah, I have always, I'm very passionate about family agriculture, home gardening. I'm very passionate about home gardening. You see, when you wake up every day, you should be able to ask yourself, why must I buy everything? Why must I buy everything? Supposing there was a day there's riot. They say nobody can go to the market. Does it mean that the family should perish? No. Even if you see, people always rationalize, oh, I'm living in a rented apartment. Why? There are potted plants. If, for example, ordinary pumpkin, we see which is so nutritious in terms of nutrient, you can plant it in a potted plant. Use a plastic, disused plastic, cement bag that are thrown away. You put your soil there, plant something there, it will yield. All that a plant need to yield is soil, water, sunlight, and the farmer. Finish. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't matter the location. So these things can be done. Even things like onions, you can plant it in potted plant. It will germinate. You can plant your tomatoes in potted this thing. You will get something to take from there.
Even yam and
yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can. So
there's no excuse.
No, it's not. So if you go to a place like China, that's why despite the population, every available land is put to something. You can never see any empty land in China. It's not possible. All these uncompleted building or developed plots all over the place and so forth and so on, they ought to be devoted to one thing or the other to support the urban population in what we call urban agriculture as well. So I think it's all a question of changing the mindset. Changing the mindset. So people don't have the belief that, oh, they can always have money to buy. It has nothing to do with whether you are rich or poor. It has to do with passion. And there's nothing as interesting as consuming what you plant. I visited a family, myself and my wife. My wife saw there was this idea Spanish. My wife said, is it not what you usually talk about that is very good for, I said yes. He said, yeah. So we told the man to give us some. And when I got home, I planted it. Today, people now come to my place to collect. It doesn't take anything. It takes nothing. It doesn't even require any extra knowledge.
You're eating healthily.
Yes, it doesn't require any this thing. So this is what it ought to be. And two, even like this thing, you can also keep some birds. You can also keep some birds. What does it take to keep some birds? You have this like this Hausa basket, this big basket that they have. You put some chicken there, you give them food, you keep the basket outside. It doesn't disturb any person. As long as you give them food, you give them water, they will grow there. And that basket too is to protect them against hawks and that will come and prey on them. So there are so many things that we can do.
The way you're just saying it, it's as if, okay, I'll just get home and start doing it. I believe if I'm doing it and you are doing it, we have the food will be surplus.
That is it. That's the idea.
And this high prices of the food items will reduce. Okay, thank you so much. We have a lot to do in Nigeria, and thank God we have a man like you that is always educating and enlightening us on agriculture. Once again, thank you so much for your thoughts. We really appreciate it. We've been looking at food shortages as predicted by NIMET. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency said in 2021 we should expect food shortages, and what to do we are trying to look at on the way out so that we have food to eat, because food is very important. I believe you've eaten something this morning. I've eaten, and when you eat something, you have to thank the farmer for that. That's our show this morning on Issues and Answers. And Josephine Ehimihi. Do have a blissful day ahead.
أحزانك فيها الضحكة معسولة ألحانك ردت كلمة منشودة عيد مبارك بلحانك خلي العيد بحلولة فرحة وسامر خلانك